Hey everybody, welcome to the show. I'm Liz Larson and I'm back with my friend Bill McKenna.
Hi there.
Hey Bill, and we're back with one of our favorite guests, and I know it's one of yours as well, Cynthia Sue Larson. And today we're going to continue our conversation about the weird and wonderful Mandela effects, reality shifting, time shifting. We're going to focus on how does solar flares affect all of these things? How do you affect them? And I think one of the big questions is, Cynthia, like, how are all of these things affecting people and how they feel and what their lives are doing, all of that kind of thing. So, welcome everybody.
Thank you. Welcome. It's good to be with both of you. Love talking with you. Could spend days and days just hanging out, talking with you.
I know, and we're going to really, really soon.
I know.
So,
So excited.
Cynthia is a part of the board and the founders of the
Mm.
International Mandela Effect Conference, which is a YouTube channel, as well as an actual conference that is happening in Nashville, um, November 7th through the 10th, right?
That's right.
Just right there outside of Nashville. And the tickets are still available, and people go to imec.world, right?
That's right.
Right. So we'll just get that right out of the way up front.
Mm.
That's the action thing to do. Go get
Mm.
your tickets. So, Cynthia, I have a question for you that, everything comes to me while I'm putting my makeup on in the morning.
Yeah.
It's like meditation time. I get these big downloads.
Mm.
And I was noticing that I felt different for the last, few weeks. And we had our big event, the Cogno Conscious event, and we always feel different after that. And a lot of times we're tired and there's a recovery period because, Bill and I work really hard at this event. And I haven't really been tired, but things have felt very stable. They've been really quiet. I have a super busy mind and things have been quiet. There's a different feeling,
Mm.
is all I can say. And the idea of like a bloop, like a bubble of time, like entering a space, and then you seem to bloop back out of it again. And it feels like a time bubble. What is that?
Well, I'm not sure exactly what you were particularly experiencing, but maybe you could describe it a bit more. So it was just you feeling more calm than usual and feeling like it came through and then it left, if I'm hearing you.
It hasn't left yet. No, it's not the particular feeling. It's like a period of time, and we've experienced it a lot, like ramping up
Uh-huh.
over the last couple of years, where all of a sudden it feels as though time has shifted rapidly. The timeline has shifted, the paradigms have shifted. What was happening the day before is just not happening, and your whole life feels like it's changed. And there's a feeling of moving through that, at least for me,
Right?
and then there's an end to it, and you move into something that feels more like your regular life or something even different. But it feels like a period, a bracketed period of time. And the way in my mind, was like, imagine that you step into a bubble, like a soap bubble,
Yes.
and you're in this weird little bubble, and then you pop out the other side of it. That's what it kind of felt like to me, the sensation was. I know that might sound weird, but is that something you're familiar with? These moving through a particular kind of like even a time zone?
It could, yeah, time is such an interesting thing. I've experienced it lots of different ways. Not so much particularly like you're exactly like you're describing, but similar. I've had feelings of calmness that came through, or just a feeling of being supported and loved. In other words, I can sort of feel when there's been a collective, you might call it a prayer or a convergence of shared consciousness. And so I'll feel that quite often before an event or during an event, but sometimes it'll come through before or after, where there's a gathering of people. And it could be any kind of group of people, like a group of family members, friends, or it could be related to like a tournament or a sporting event or a conference. And all of these have their own kind of carrier wave. It's kind of like a pilot wave coming through, sort of like the energies are getting together. There's an agreement about what's happening. I feel that sort of thing a lot. And sometimes I'll feel what's happening on the global stage before world events happen. And sometimes I feel like I'm getting called in to assist with it by bringing calmness, by bringing an optimism to it, because that changes everything. And just by my presence, and I'll be sometimes aware of that. So I'll get a lot of those kinds of experiences, which are, and then weather involvement. So I get lots of feeling like the consciousness of others is what I'd say. And so I'll feel time in the context of the consciousness of others related to something beyond words, but it does have a feeling to it. And if I look into it or lean into it, sometimes I can get a sense of, like I said, the world event thing. I might get a clue as to what's happening or what's unfolding.
It's so interesting. Do you know what I'm talking about, Bill? Our little team is so connected. We go through things together, and it's almost like, wait, did something just shift? Do you know what I mean, Bill?
Yeah, we go through periods of time of shifting shifting as a group, whether the period of time is chaotic or one of harmony and peace. But they definitely have definitely a sometimes a very abrupt beginning and an abrupt exit from that period of time. But it really it's one of the questions that I had for you, Cynthia, was it seems as if the Mandela effect, and for people that are watching this, like, what's the Mandela effect? Well, the Mandela effect is this. It was namesaked after Mandela. Some people have a memory of him dying, back in the 80s, and then turns out, it was a different time frame. Other memories, like, for example, things that everybody knows, like in the for example, in the Bible, it said the blank will lie down with the lamb. And, if you, what would that be? And for most of us, it is the lion. But I guess now it's the wolf. The wolf will reside with the lamb. So it's kind of a strange thing that you're like, wait a second, what are you talking about? That's not true. That's not correct. But there's so many of these shifts, like, as a collective, we're remembering differently.
Yeah.
And so this is coined the Mandela effect. But what I guess my question is that over the years, what I've witnessed is a speeding up. Like, it used to be just like one, and you're like, wow, that's a really weird thing. And then all of a sudden, it's like there are so many, not only so many happening, like in the bigger picture, like movies or radio, like songs, but actually what you might call personal Mandela effects. Like, the houses in your neighborhood, all of a sudden there's a new house that
Yes.
was never there before, or, new old things that are like, hey, wait a second, that was never there. That looked like this before.
Yes.
But clearly, physically evident, it was never that way. So anyway, it seems as if we're going through an acceleration where these things are happening more and more. And I'm wondering about the malleability of reality and the speeding up of these events that we're noticing more and more now. What is that? Why is that?
Yeah, this is definitely something that's been predicted, actually. You might think, really predicted, but it has been by a number of Indigenous First Nations people around the world. And the Hopi, for example, talked about it quite a bit. And physicist Carl Kalleman, he's a Swedish physicist, he's got an idea that there are waves. He's just riffing off the whole concept of these cycles that come through history. And he's pointing out that just like the Mayans, who are another indigenous civilization, expecting and anticipating this great period of change that we're in right now. We're in what Carl calls the ninth wave. So you can think of it as the very high vibratory frequency where things really are speeding up, and we're hitting sort of like in music, you just get to that crescendo where things are just like, da, we're really feeling it. The Hopi Indians said this is the time when extinct animals will be alive again. We're seeing that. Lots of extinct animals like the coelacanth fish are back. The giant Galapagos tortoises are back. These are huge, huge fish, gigantic tortoises. If you would expect something as big as those would not go missing for millions of years or something, but they're back. And so this was, when I say it's been expected, it's been anticipated, this is what they're talking about. So before there was the Mandela effect, we've got Hopi Indians saying the extinct animals will be back. And sure enough. So I think they get some credit here. A big shout out to the Hopi. But what's going on? I think from a physics standpoint, we can feel it. We can feel that there's an observer effect. We know from physics that if you position an observational device in an experimental apparatus like the double slit, and if you've got the detector device in one of the slits, then when you're firing one little photon at a time between one or the other slit, you'll know which one it went through because the detector inside one of the slits will say, it's here. And when in that case, when the photon hits the screen, it'll act like it was like a little paintball of light, like a particle, splat. So it's doing that thing. But if you don't put the detector in a slit and instead it's just looking at the screen, each photon and strangely will behave like it's not a particle, but instead like it's a wave, and you get the wave function interference pattern on the screen. Even one photon at a time will be landing as if it's interfering with others. So, okay, circling back to the question, what's happening now? We are the observers. This observer effect of what's going on is being driven by ourselves, as we ourselves are basically evolving. We're going through an evolutionary shift right now. That's my take on it, and it's one of the theories that I outline in my new book about the Mandela Effect and its society. I'm talking about this is an evolutionary great awakening. To me, this is quite clear that is what's happening. This has been foretold and forecast and expected, anticipated. What's different is we're part of our own evolution this time. This is very different. So this time we're able to, by looking and observing that, like, hey, the whole world is changing. If I think how good can it get, my day is better than if I think, what next? These bad things come in threes. You can run that experiment yourself if you want to. I'd recommend just ask how good can it get. I think there's enough weirdness. But we're experiencing a ramping up. And people who are looking outside of ourselves would say, well, we're seeing solar activity. We're seeing cosmic waves, energy coming from the center of the cosmos is happening. That's true. All of that is true. So whether you're looking outside of ourselves to see what's the cause, or if you're looking inside of ourselves, I think both are true, and they're happening together. And definitely there's a speeding up. We're seeing so many changes happening so quickly. That Mandela effect is becoming mainstream, which it wasn't when I started looking into this 25 years ago. It was not. Reality shifting was not mainstream. Quantum jumping was not mainstream. All these things are now becoming much more prevalent because people are experiencing them, and it's happening so that we can understand that there is that connection that you guys know so well through Cogno Movement. Thank goodness for your work, because then we can work with this. We can be part of this.
Well, as a person who has experienced reality shifts my whole life, I didn't know what they were until I found your book. And I don't even know how long ago it was, but it was a long time ago, probably not long after it came out. And it really changed the way I viewed myself, because I just thought I was a flake or there was something wrong with my brain. But things would shift around me all the time. And it was such a huge comfort to know, oh, this is a thing. And then later on, really embodying how to utilize it was another big, magnificent discovery. And then now that the energy has ramped up so much, Now it seems almost more important to be super aware of your own energy, knowing that you're going to change or shift even more rapidly. I think still what sneaks up on me was back to my original question was all of a sudden it feels like time has shifted and I'm thinking, wait a minute, everything was okay. What happened? And I'm wondering about, you talked about how the parallel realities are bumping into each other, crossing more and more. And it occurs to me now that I think of it, maybe that's the issue. So let's hold over that conversation till after the break. And when we come back, let's talk about that, how the parallel lines of time are or realities are moving and merging into each other. So for now, we'll be right back. And we're back. We're here with Bill McKenna and Cynthia Sue Larson, and we're talking about timeline shifting, reality shifting, the Mandela Effect. So, how are we being affected by these timelines running into each other, crossing over? And is there something in particular that's causing it?
Yeah, we're being affected all the time. We are affecting it, actually. So if you take the active role instead of feeling like the victim in the situation, I think that's powerful right there. Just to step into that and say, okay, maybe I'm having something to do with this. Yes, absolutely. We're doing this through that observational effect that I was just talking about. When my book Quantum Jumps came out in 2013, I felt badly after it was published that so after the book came out, then I was surprised to see that something I'd been hoping and waiting for, a physicist, Yasunori Nomura, who's right here in Berkeley, teaching at UC Berkeley, where that's my alma mater, where I studied physics. And I saw that I got to meet him at an event for particle physics, the premiere of the movie by that name. He was there. I saw his name up on the stand of people, of the scientists that would be there to discuss the film afterwards. And I was super excited because I had found out that he understood the idea that when you see, for example, part of a chair hidden behind the wall, like you're looking around the corner in a room and you see half of a chair. He's got an illustration in one of his papers that shows we know that the other half of the chair must be there instead of smeared out over all probability waves. We know that. Okay, this is going to tie into your question. I'll come right back for it. Okay, but what's so cool about that, I was showing that when I'd give talks, I'd say, look at this picture. This is by Yasunori Nomura. He co-authored a paper with Alan Guth about the super hyperinflation of the universe. Alan Guth is the $1 million research winner of that grant money that was received for the award of noticing the hyperinflation at the time of the Big Bang. Alan Guth is no slouch. And so Yasunori is right there. But when I talked to Yasunori, I said, okay, I'd love to meet you for tea. Let's talk some more. So he said yes. And so I met him for tea. We talked some more. And that's where I apologized that I didn't include him in my book, Quantum Jumps, because he did not exist. He said, yeah. He said, yeah. Okay, this is important because now it's me, a physics student. I'm not a professor, but talking to a professor, very highly successful professor, very knowledgeable. And he understood, of course. Yeah, I didn't exist. And he said, I'd love a copy of that book. I said, I'm sorry you're not in it. But he understands. Like I said, every time now I talk about these topics, of course I'd mention you because he is bridging that gap between the cosmic of the relativistic world of Albert Einstein and the quantum where we have these interpretations of quantum physics. Is this a multiverse? Maybe. Is this a holographic universe? Maybe. It does look like these things. Is it possible that Yasunori did not exist before? Yasunori and I both agree, yes, maybe. That is huge. And so the fact that we're able to call people into our realities based on needing them, I feel like I need Yasunori Nomura in my reality. And then here he is in my city, in Berkeley, at the university that I studied at. He knew the professor that I loved the most at UC Berkeley. Won't name him because I loved them all, but there was a favorite. And he knew that one. It's like, this is crazy. This is amazing. And so we can do this for each other. We can come into each other's worlds. We can absolutely create the reality we most wish to live in. And we're doing it by observing, by knowing we need something. Just like when you need a programmed parking spot in front of a busy business and it can be there when you're feeling in the right vibe. we can do this with everything, regardless how messed up and how crashing together these timelines might be. This is absolutely a fun time to be alive. It's the best. You're more likely to have success with all of this change happening everywhere. And so we're very much a part of it. And I hope I answered the question in there. If I didn't, you can expound on it and we'll dive in deeper.
Yeah,
I I
go ahead.
gotta just have Cynthia. There's a story about you and money with your daughter and your wallet. And could you this one just blew my mind about the could there be more?
Yes.
You
Oh
tell
gosh,
us
yes.
now when you everybody's listening to this
Yes.
and they're like, well, malleability of reality, but this is something that has practical applications, just mind blowing when you're in that oh, I don't know what to call it, maybe frequency,
Yes.
mention, understanding, and
Yes.
being able to actually control yourself. So
Yes.
I tell us about that story at the restaurant. I think it was at a restaurant.
It was, yeah, it was at a Mexican restaurant called Chevy's in California. It's a chain Mexican restaurant. It used to be in Alameda, which is an island near my home. When my daughters were young, I thought, well, this is a great treat. Let's go out for Mexican dinner. And so, and it was one of the first times they'd been in a restaurant with me. So I was explaining after the meal. Now it's a good time to tip the waitress. She was really great. She depends on tips for her living because she gets a salary, but here in California, it needs to be added to by the tip. And so I looked in my wallet and I said, I gave a credit card to pay for the meal, but I'd like to give a cash tip for the waitress. So I'm reaching in to see, like, let's see if what I've got here. And I only had $1 bill. And I pulled it out and I said, well, and my children were quite young. I need to emphasize that. And they were my daughters. So I've got my two daughters there, young, open-minded. They're in a household. I should back up a little bit and explain. If they're missing an item, like Mommy, I lost my shoes. Like, okay, let's hope for a reality shift. You know, with the drill, we're just going to walk around the house, hope for a reality shift. And then, oh, look, here are your shoes on top of the refrigerator. Okay, but they're back, you know. So that kind of thing was happening all the time. I need to say that because this is the households that, if you think that's crazy, yeah. But it was the way we were, or, you know, that was possible with young children. If they don't know different, if they know that it's possible to change your reality, that's your best manifesting friends. You know, so anyway, there we are in the restaurant, and I closed the wallet. I said, should I look again? With this mindset, again, this is the household where if you're missing something, hope for reality shift, it comes back. They said, yeah, open it up, look again. So I open the wallet up and again, it's an otherwise empty wallet, but there's one more dollar bill. So I'm pulling out dollar bill after dollar bill, putting them on the table, shutting the wallet. I did this many times with the love, the like, let's give the waitress a good tip. Is this enough money? No. Like, okay, because I'd already discussed it. An appropriate tip would be so many dollars. So let's do it again. So that's what we did, just dollar bill after dollar bill. And I did this recently this year with a locked door, just opening a locked door when my colleague, another famous, well, Paula Harris, she writes about, you know, Commander Corso and UFOs, and she's wonderful. But we shared a room in a place, and it had a door lock on the front door. We were locked out. The code didn't work. And she said, the back door is locked too. And I said, but I'm feeling the energy, the same energy I felt in the restaurant. It's the energy of success. And I just know, like, oh, this is no problem now. I've got like this Kundalini wave. I'm feeling it right now as I'm talking, this huge rush of energy coming through. So whatever I'm thinking about, which is I'm just going to walk around to the back door and open it. I know you locked it, Paula. I put my hand on her shoulder. Don't worry about it. This is exactly what I was just talking about at this oneness event here in Crestone, Colorado. This is what I'm talking about. This is reality shifting. So I can feel it. No problem. We've got this. So I walked around to the back and opened the door because we were in the middle of, oh, it was locked and it did open, which is a superposition of states, which is fine with me. Like I'm looking at the door, it's a glass door. I can see it's locked. Yeah, it's locked. And I'm going to open it, which is exactly what happened. And then Paula just walked up like, whoa. But that's what happens when you feel this energy, when you know that no matter what it looks like, if it's something you need, because in Crestone, the nearest locksmith was a 5-hour drive away. We're in the middle of nowhere. So in other words, it was required that we open this door so that we're not arriving at her friend's house at 4 a.m. instead of at, 6 at night or whatever. It would have really messed up the whole schedule. So
You know,
whether, it doesn't matter what it is, money, locked doors, whatever.
it really is about how you feel. Like you said, you felt the love for the waitress, or, okay, this is a necessity. It has to open without the panic part. Like, obviously, it will open.
Yes.
My daughter and I, we had our Cogno Conscious event. Like I said, Bill lives in San Diego. We had an Airbnb in the downtown in Little Italy that we absolutely loved. We love being there. But on arrival, we realized that there wasn't actually designated parking. It was street parking. And on the weekends and, high times, that's nearly impossible. So we just decided that we would use our reality shifting skills. And for the most part, before we'd get there, we like, oh yeah, we remember we have princess parking. That's what we call it, princess parking. And so every night we got princess parking, like literally within just a block or a half a block, like the perfect location, except for one. And that night, it was maybe the fourth or fifth day in, we were exhausted. Like we were probably starving. We just weren't at our best, kind of a little cranky. Day had gone long or something, I don't know. And we almost drove around for an hour before we remembered that we get princess parking. And you know what happened? This is the weirdest thing. A block from there was a paid parking that was like $20. Normally, paid parking starts at $60 in the high times, right down there for just a couple of hours. This was $20 overnight. It was literally right there, but we swore it hadn't been there before. Not that close, right? So even that night, once we shifted out of our crankiness, we got our princess parking. But it's almost a miracle to find parking as close as we did every day.
Yes.
So it really is about that feeling.
Yes.
One other tool that I use is I call it asking no one in particular. And I don't know that I'm really asking anyone, but it shifts me out of, I'm like, oh yeah, remember I have help. Hey, would somebody help me find this whatever? And my body completely lets it go. I'm at neutral and the thing shows up.
Yes.
So I think that's the thing that people can understand, that how you feel in the moment absolutely shifts the reality, right?
It's a huge factor, absolutely. And that's like once you practice feeling inside your own body, how do you feel about a certain topic? So you can think about something that you love that makes you feel relaxed and happy, like your favorite friend or favorite pet or favorite movie or favorite book or whatever song. And there should be a relaxation response that occurs. So you're resting and digesting in that super sweet state of being. And then if you think about whatever it is you'd like to manifest, then notice if there's tension somewhere and you can tune into that and work. And of course, that's what you guys work with. And I do work with clients on that as well, because often we're not taught this when we're going through school. We're not taught that you are the one that's changing. You've got a field effect all around you, and everything that's happening around you is being orchestrated, obviously by yourself and others. Other people play a role too. And this is a time of great chaos, as we're talking about timelines crashing together more often. So it seems a little extra exciting, but it's fine when you have the right attitude of like, oh, well, and you just ride through whatever the little bumps along the road might be. It's a much better journey.
The bumps along the road, like that really is Bill's and my wheelhouse with cognitive movement, that you sometimes there's things that don't feel like a bump in the road, but like a mountain. So one of the big themes at our last event was relationships. And you know that more than 30% of the people at this event were over 70 years old, which was so interesting. Vital, amazing humans, but 70 years old. And they still had that one last thing. And for most of them, it was the lifelong family trauma, something that had happened to them or their family or their ancestry that was just that mountain in the road. And it's like, well, I can't feel better about this thing because this thing is real and this
Right.
thing is a problem. So that's what our work does is it helps the nervous system get out of that habit, and it's a reality. It's the truth for you, right? In that moment, this is a problem. I can't get out of it. My family had this problem. We've always had this problem. It's who we are. Until all of a sudden, the electrical patterns in our body let go of their focus on that thing. And then the wave, like you're talking about, it collapses of that reality. And then instantly, it's like an instant opening in the clouds, like, oh, that,
Yes.
oh, wait a minute. No, that's not true at all. Oh, guess what? That's not what happened in our family. Or the meaning of it is so transformed that the person no longer, they feel like it never really happened. The
Right.
old pattern is not there anymore. And then what we saw, I mean, we saw women in their late 70s who looked like 15-year-old teenagers, two friends
Oh,
that came together. I mean, they are the cutest things. I mean, they were so excited and so happy. But what some of them described is this power moving in their body.
yes.
And then what happened next is they're in San Diego, they're on vacation, well, and at an event, going to the beach. Everything just clicked. Manifestations started to happen. You know, people were inviting them to exactly the place they wanted to go and providing a ride. And, you know, it's like, it's not like, it is that it changes the flow of the energy in the body. And then the way that energy is interacting with the world around you, with the universe, actually. Is that the experience you have seen as well?
Oh,
That the
yes.
energy shifts?
Yes, absolutely. I see that with myself, with individuals, and it feels like I also feel like we're seeing it with the world. I know the world seems chaotic right now, but I know that that's the way that we change it is by introducing that high energy combined with that grounded calmness, which is the hallmark of cognitive movement, as you guys know. Like you're so good at teaching it. And I love the way that you make it so accessible for so many people. I'm so glad you're coming to our event in Nashville so people can see what you do, the work that you do, and it really opens up a whole new appreciation for the connectedness that we all have. I'll be talking about the science of basically magic, the way that we're able to influence the world. Because I was involved in a very interesting experiment this year with ions. It was a Dean Radin experiment, and that was so much fun getting to influence what's inside of he'd wrapped my box in looked like copper foil, so it looked like a Faraday cage, which amused me. Like, oh, now I should not be able to influence this. Ha ha. So of course, no problem. Um, anyway, he didn't say anything about this is in a Faraday
Tell us
cage.
about that. Tell us about the experiment. What was in the box? What did you do? What
Oh,
Ions is such a respected
oh,
organization.
yes. Oh
Tell
my
us
gosh.
about it.
I have so much respect for the organization, for Dean Radin, his work. He's amazing. So he designed an experiment basically to replicate sort of the double slit experiment. Um, but it's something, it's a little different. It's a box that he designed and built it's an interferometer. So inside the box it's all electronics. And I didn't take it apart. I followed the instructions properly. Do not mess or tamper with the equipment. So I didn't look inside the box, but he later showed us this is what he designed. An interferometer basically interferes. It's like setting up light up to interfere with itself, very much like two slits where a photon goes through one or goes through the other. The whole point is that it's an extremely precision device. It's probably the most precision device that Dean could have built and handed out to each of us. There were 50 participants. He went through a huge screening process to make sure that people were very capable of focusing attention and mostly focusing attention, really staying focused on something and not letting your attention wander no matter what's happening. And that takes a certain skill set. So there were certain tests that were given. The experiment itself was set up with software hooked to the device. So it was a little device about yay big, black plastic thing about this tall, about that wide, and it was black plastic, like plastic printed, like you can print devices. But then mine, as I said, was wrapped in this beautiful copper material. Dean handed out stickers with a sigil on it. The project is called Sigil, Sigil. He's now written up the preliminary report on what happened with the experiment. Each of us, the 50 of us original participants, were given 10 tries. We got practice runs, and then we got 10 tries. We'd say, okay, this is the real thing. And then we'd say, go. And then we'd try to influence the light inside the box for each. And it would take about half an hour. Basically, it's saying, like, make an effort to, try to affect the what's inside the box. And we'd get feedback both of a little light on top of the box. I like to see it go from red to green to white. I like to bring it all the way up to white if I could. And so accompanied there, I'd hear a sound on the computer screen where it's going, higher and higher note. So you try to make it sound like angels, like, very easy thing, feeling love, make it sound like angels, hold it at white as much as possible when it's like focus, and then there'd be relax, and then you just don't do anything, turn your brain off, turn your mind off, focus, relax. So it'd be, each run was a series of focus, relax, and trying to influence the device. I had 10 chances to do that. One of them, I tried to do something like, oh, if this works well, which it was working well, I'll do something even better. Well, that was a complete failure. And I told Dean all about that. And I've learned so much from that so-called failure. That was the most interesting thing of all for me personally, because I decided, well, I'll just bring my Kundalini energy up before I start the run. Turns out, seems very relevant to all of us, that by doing that in advance, it's not really connecting with the reality bubble that you were talking about, Liz. It's much worse effect to try to do anything in advance. All my best results were in the moment, in that reality that I was actually in. Doing anything in advance was a waste of time. And I got the worst results ever on that run. That was really interesting and
That
extremely
is,
informative.
yeah, that is very informative. So if you extrapolate that to our current
Yes.
reality,
Yes.
when you think about manifesting something like, oh, I want that new widget,
Right.
oh, whatever that is, that could be a house, a car, a plane, a girl, a boy, whatever, you
Yeah.
know, a lot of us before, when we're not there in the event, faced with that, we're muddling it over, plotting and planning and scheming, on whatever that might be. But this is a very interesting thing. You are in the moment, and the scientifically proving that it's it is super effective being in the moment now and doing it versus the pre-planning. What else about that?
Hold
There's
on just a second, guys. We are way past our next break. Let's take a quick break. And if you'll put a pin in that, Cynthia, and answer Bill's question right after the break. Okay, let's hear from our good sponsors and we'll be right back. Okay, and we're back. Cynthia, let's hear that answer.
Yeah, well, this is such an interesting topic. I think, first of all, I was expecting that by doing a little bit, I thought this is working so well. I'm getting good results. The light's going from green to white. I'm hearing the angels singing. That's what it sounds like to me. Feeling the love. All I need to do now, what would happen? Obviously, I'll get better results, right? If I bring my energy up and ground more in advance. And then, much to my surprise, that really did not happen. So my takeaway from that experience was I'm still learning from that experience. That was like one of my biggest teaching moments of this past year. So it's like this ongoing, it's like a cave full of jewels, treasures really. So so many observations there. Clearly, if we think like we're going to be planning in advance, like you asked, like I want the car, I want the job, so I'll be doing the pre-work. I would advise, with what I've now experienced, don't take that approach. Be much more in the moment, be much more in the flow. We're in a time right now with these realities, like I said, crashing together. So if that's happening, if we're getting timelines converging all over the place, it's a lot better just to be kind of loose and relaxed and kind of in that groove. What I would feel when I was doing each one of the runs is each time I did it, It's very similar to what Liz was asking earlier, like feeling like a real different feeling. Every time I did that experiment with the device, it felt different to connect with the box, to connect with the device. It was a little bit different. And it was in that moment. And so that's the key, is being in that moment, connecting with whoever and wherever you are. You're in the right place, you're in the right time. So start there. Even if you feel like I'm not, like everything's wrong, I would recommend know that you're in the how good can it get reality. You're choosing that. You have chosen that. We're choosing that with you. That's what I want more than anything else for every person on this planet. I wish for the how good can it get reality for each of us. Just know you're there and then be in that moment with that. Maybe it feels weird. Sure, it will. And then make that connection, be in relationship anyway with what you most desire. Be in the best, most loving, most elevated relationship in that moment. Don't try to pre-plan it. Don't try to, because so many of us want it to go well. So I really got organized. Yeah, you might do that. But right now, we're going to have better results to be in that moment with the way these timelines are coming together. I'm seeing it more than ever right now this year. How about you guys?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. It makes so much sense. And there's something we have been talking about probably for the past, I don't know, 18 months, maybe 2 years. I don't know. Time has gotten so weird. But about this need to be in the present. And that when we're working with someone and we get them to neutral and, get the mountain out of the way, that they are invited to be in the present. Like for the first time in their life, they're here now, not in the past, not in the future, but right here now. And from what you're saying, it almost seems like this is what is required
Yes.
now, because if everything is shifting and moving and timelines are crashing together, you can only be in the moment and feel into what's happening right now.
Yes.
If you're planning 6 months from now, the timelines may have shifted 59,000 times. And who knows what'll actually be going on then or what becomes available. So we talk a lot about what's available. And that seems even more relevant with what you're saying is what's available in the energy right now. And how does my energy interact with it? Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, it's really feeling into it, not assuming anything, being fully present, and being willing to kind of like, it's like improv. It's like if you're on stage and you don't know quite what play you've walked into. I don't know if you've had dreams like that where you're going to school and like, wow, I didn't know we're having a test today. So what if life is like that? And like, I didn't know we're having a test today. What if it's always like that? What if that's the real reality? And not that it has to be a test every day, but just the feeling of like, this is so different than I thought it was. What if looking at the world instead of assuming like, oh, it's the same old, what if it isn't? What if it's like radically, dynamically different? And all it takes is our ability to recognize that we're in how good can it get?
Mm.
This is what we're really co-creating right now. This is the 1,000 years of peace. This is Shambhala. This is the golden age. We are calling it in together. And we don't need any kind of a device or a system or anything telling us what it is, but we know it instinctively by being in relationship with each other, with ourselves, with the earth. And it's really feeling that deeply in this moment and not assuming it's wrong, but just knowing like, okay, this is where I'm meant to be. So even if you feel like you're playing golf and you hit the ball into the sand trap, it's like, cool, I'm in the sand trap. So it's a radical dynamic optimism that I find extremely effective. So that no matter how you get knocked around and bumped around, and things even happened today before this interview that were wildly strange, but just like, oh well, whatever, just roll with it.
So we know that we are going to run way over on this conversation. So everybody will have a little bit of an extended conversation with Cynthia on YouTube. It's the Cogno Movement channel. You could probably find it in a few days after that on Reality Shifters channel as well. So everybody here on UK Health Radio, if you want more of this conversation, join us on YouTube at Cogno Movement or Reality Shifters. For now, Cynthia, we've got about 2 minutes. Would you tell everybody how they can get tickets for the IMEC conference and where else they can find you?
Yes, the tickets are still available. They're at imec.world, WORLD. And you can also find me at my website, which is Reality Shifters. com. And I do also have YouTube channel and Facebook and Twitter and all sorts of things. So, but that's the best way to find me, either one of those two places. And I'd love to see people in person at our conference. You'll be there too. You are the keynote speakers, and you'll be giving a workshop. So this is the place to be, guys. Anybody who's interested in either the Mandela Effect or consciousness or any of these topics, definitely want to see you there.
Absolutely. And if you're brand new to this topic, please reach out to realityshifters.com and get 1, 2, 3, 4 of Cynthia's books, because it explains everything. And if you're like me, it might really change your life. All right. We'll join you in the after chat, Cynthia. And for everybody else in UK Health Radio Land, till next week, be safe and be well. All right, we're back with our extended chat. We're here with Bill McKenna and Cynthia Sue Larson. And I could see, Bill McKenna, am I right about this? There was a question brewing in your mind?
Oh, I just, there was basically a very interesting experiment that Cynthia had done, where it was remote influence, where she would take these lights and they'd go, to a higher frequency, and successfully did it 9 out of 10 times. And then one time that she didn't do it, there was something really important that happened. She thought, oh my gosh, I'm getting super results. I'm going to just raise my Kundalini up, and I'm going to be able to knock this thing out of the park. We're gonna make this thing go nuts. And for everybody who's listening to this this is no joke. Cynthia she's one of the few people on the planet who's authentically had a full-blown Kundalini awakening and full-blown experience. That's detailed in some of her other books, but this is a rare individual. The power of this is the evolutionary power of the universe. So when people go through this, it's super significant, and one heck of a lot of voltage gets generated. And so the reason I bring this up is that where it should be very clearly a orders of magnitude multiplier of your intention. When she would bring this energy to the picture, it should just absolutely, if you gave me $1 million and said, make a bet, Bill, what's going to happen? I'm going to say she's going to heat that device up and it may pop, but but that's absolute opposite of what happened. So I thought that was super significant. And I guess, did you try it where you're when you're there,
Yeah.
and you're trying to do the experiment, and now I'm just going to try and really elevate this in the process?
Okay. Yeah, I was actually, that's a good question. I was doing the Kundalini connection real time with the device, usually after choosing, okay, I'm ready to start a real run right now. That choice point seems like the activator. That was the difference, because I was actually doing the Kundalini energy on the other 9 successful runs. But the difference being, this is where it gets into what Liz was asking about, that time bubble. And I said, well, I'm not sure. But if you look at it like a time reality bubble, then me doing something in advance and thinking like I'll be connecting with when I do the real run, that did not connect. That was like a different timeline. And so I know that my Kundalini energy was correct. I know it's powerful. But for whatever reason, on that 9th run, the one time that I didn't do the real time merging, like make that choice, like, okay, I'm starting now. Now I'll do the Kundalini. Now I'll do instead it was like, I'll do it in advance. I'll do something and connect with another reality. That did not work. It was like a totally different timeline. And it was almost like not only wasn't working, but it was negatively working. It was like the worst run. It was terrible. I was so apologetic to Dean. I said, though, that was the worst one ever. But he's not going to change the protocol. He's like, this is, part of this, live and learn. And I feel
Yeah,
like I learned a lot from that one thing, much
yeah.
more than if it was just a practice run. I think it matters that it was for the real thing. It's like, this is real. Because I did practice runs too, and they all, that there you could practice things, but I didn't practice it for a practice run. I think it's more significant that it was for the real run. I don't think that it would have even had the same effect.
You know what
Interesting.
it feels like to me is pushing energy and the versus neutrality. In our vernacular, and everybody has their own, we call it neutrality, but it's a feeling in the body. It's like a full presence, and everything feels calm and neutral
Yes.
versus this pushing energy into or onto something. And Cynthia, in my experience in the past, even into the 2000s to 2015 realm, pushing energy kind of worked. I could at least manipulate or change reality around me by pushing at it. Almost with a little bit of force. And it feels like energy being pushed out of my body, and it's more up here for me. That's what it feels like, in the chest to the head movement. Where now, like you're saying, that doesn't feel good or right. It almost feels like reality pushes back.
Yeah.
But the power is in this neutral place and seeing a nice outcome. But it's only a possibility, not pushing at it in some way. Does that translate to you? Does that make sense to you?
In the experiment, I was doing lifting. I was actually lifting it to an angelic realm. So I felt like I'd run my Kundalini and then I'd lift, and then we just go sweet spot to that white. And just like if I'm working with energy for weather or opening a
Yeah.
locked door or whatever, it's just like feeling. It's for me, it's a lifting, not a pushing. It's not pushing. It's like, can we all go to the higher level together? Oh, good, we're going together. Let's do that. What's interesting is I couldn't do it in advance at all. It was so strange. And Dean Radin is an interesting individual. Once I'd listened to a podcast where he was talking about his book Real Magic, and I was thinking about it, and I was carrying a bottle of furniture polish, and I was shaking it absent-mindedly, like because there wasn't much left, and so I was sort of shaking it, what's left of it, maybe an inch of it in a big bottle, shaking it as I was walking, and then it flew out of my hand. After I'd walked through the hall, I'd closed the door behind me. I was in the kitchen. The bottle was gone from my hand, and then it was gone. I mean, it was gone. And the only thing behind me was the oven. Because of the strange things that happened in my life, I looked inside the oven for the bottle. It was not there. I know that sounds crazy. I looked inside the refrigerator, which was right in front of me. It was not in the refrigerator. It wasn't on the floor anywhere near me. I hadn't heard any. I should have heard a noise from it hitting something. I didn't. And I thought, well, there's one of those things. I'll just have to go get a brand new bottle now. Like, well, that's frustrating. So as I walked back to get a new bottle, at some point I recognized in the living room, which is quite a distance from where the bottle had flown out of my hand, there was the bottle of furniture polish. It would have had to go through a closed door, cross the hallway, go into a different room. There's no way. And I would have heard a sound. I heard nothing. It just flew out of my hand, teleported itself to a completely different room. So these kind of things can happen when you are relaxed. That's one thing I want to say. But then in the experiment that Dean just did, his preliminary reports, I think, are better than some people's final reports. In his preliminary report, he's showing he actually studied magicians and meditators. And that was a secret thing he was doing that he didn't really announce early on. But all of those people have focus. But some people are more inclined to be actively involved in influencing their reality. That would be the magicians. The meditators are just like, they're just relaxed. And he said that the magicians definitely got a pronounced influence with the interferometers, where the meditators did not have such an outcome.
So it was about focus.
They were both focused. Yeah, both groups are very focused. The focus is not the whole thing. Focus is good. It's important. It was essential to be one of the 50 finalists out of 4,000 or 5,000 applicants. But so focus got you into the group of 50, but within that group, half of them were magicians. And I think the magicians are also meditators. Like I'm a meditator, but I guess I'm a magician because if I talk to the weather, it'll listen to me and I can hear it listening to me. It'll say like, okay, let's bring in rain for California now. And I'm like, thank you. So I can feel the interaction. So that would be a magician, I think. And whereas the meditator would just be just relaxed and just let go.
You're talking about real magic, not necessarily an illusionist.
Not an illusionist, no. This is the like Dean's book called Real Magic, which he was talking about. And then the funny thing is I posted this to social media with a picture of the bottle. And then on social media, Facebook, Dean made this funny little comment like, so that explains why a bottle of furniture polish briefly arrived on the floor in my kitchen and then vanished again. So funny. He's joking, I think.
You think, Bill, I think I interrupted you. What were you trying to say?
Oh my gosh, I can't remember. That's the truth. But I just absolutely fascinating how these, quantum appearance, disappearance. I absolutely I love that. I love that. And it all happening so quickly. You have such a funny life, That's it. Just a funny existence where you're opening up your wallet and pulling out money and closing it up and pulling out more money, that it was empty. Life like that, except you probably have to be like, oh my gosh, I do need my keys now.
Yeah.
They disappeared. I kind of need to leave right now.
Yeah. Well, I think we're coming into quantum superpowers right now, which is where I end my new book, Mandela Effect and its Society, because I know that everything that we see in quantum physics, we can do. We can be bilocating, no problem. People have noticed I've done that. We can teleport, no problem. All these things are part of our quantum superpowers. It's part of our interdimensional true identity, and we're coming into that now. So I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just got excited.
Tell us about, I have a few bilocation stories, but I want to hear about your bilocation stories from the perspective of, were you aware of the two realities simultaneously, or did it just come to you and people said, hey, by the way, thanks for coming by yesterday to my house, and you weren't aware that you were there? Well, what was it like for you?
It's kind of like it's sort of a yes and no quantum answer to that question, Bill, because I was aware of it as a daydream. Now I no longer think of daydreams as like they're harmless. You can do anything. I don't think that way about a daydream anymore. I see daydreams for me. I'm not telling other people what to do, but when I daydream, I'm absolutely there in some reality. That's when people notice me. One time the first time it happened quite noticeably, it was a cold winter morning and I didn't want to wake up. I was awake, but I didn't want to get out of my bed and turn the heater up and wake up my daughters and say, okay, time to get ready for school. I was thinking about it, daydreaming about it. You sense where this is going. I could sort of imagine myself doing these things. You know how sometimes you do that. And then I hear little voices from down the hall and I'm like, that's odd. They woke themselves up. And then sort of a pitter patter of little feet running to see me and like, wow, they're coming to see me. And then they said, Mom, what are you doing back in bed? I said, back in bed? Wait a minute, what? Did I wake you up? Yes. I was in your room. Yes. Now they were at an age they could not open the very heavy window shade in their room. It was open. They never would wake themselves up. It would always have to be me. So I believed that indeed I'd bilocated because there was evidence that the light was on in their room. Now they could have done that, but they said, you turned the light on, you opened the window shade. And I believed them because there's no way they could have done it. And they were awake, it was just the three of us in the house at the time. So that was one time. And then it happened again. It's probably happened a lot of times. Like I said, if I daydream, I make sure let's be daydreaming. How good can it get kind of things? Because I'm not going to let myself daydream anything else. So I'm applying that focus to my daily life. I'm taking it very seriously because, the implications to me are rather huge. The second time I daydreamed, I was at a book event and I was indoors on a nice day. the classic story of just looking out the windows and wishing you were out there. It wasn't just any random place though. I, for some reason, was wishing I was just on a specific street near my home, Solano Avenue. It's a beautiful shop-lined, tree-lined street. I just imagined I was walking along on that beautiful autumn day with the sunshine. It was so beautiful. And then after that book event, I got home and I saw an email from a friend saying, I thought, like, Cynthia, I saw you today on, on Solano. I thought you were at a book event in Pleasant Hill. And I said, I was. Wait, what time did you see me? And it was exactly when I was daydreaming about that.
That's amazing. I love that Dean Radin's book is called Real Magic. And I like that you have referred to it as magic because that is what it feels like. All these things were in the realm of magic in the past, but where did people get these ideas in the first place? There had to have been a time when it was possible for us. And I'm wondering if it has to do with, where we are in the universe, where our galaxy is in the universe. In the law of one material, they talk about that as another place that it was prophesied is that our galaxy would be moving out to the edge or of our, what is it? Our solar system is moving to the edge of our galaxy, and that our galaxy is moving out to the edge of something. I guess I don't know what that is. And that the energy would be much more, just stronger, hotter, more intense. And then that would then require us to have our vibration be higher, lift our consciousness. And that these solar flares like that are happening now, the energy is what makes these things sort of available. Now, I don't know if any of that's true or not true, but it sort of seems like what's happening. So it leads me also to the question, do you think the current solar maximum that's happening and all of the energy that's being thrown at the planet, do you think that is contributing to our ability to actually do some of this magic, have it be real?
I think it's quite interrelated for sure. It seems like we're getting access to some of these upgrades, evolutionary upgrades that humans are capable of through information relayed through our sun, and the Earth's geomagnetic field is definitely reducing. I was recently reading a scientific paper showing that individuals such as myself and you guys can change the geomagnetic field like no problem, which is very interesting. Because I also saw another paper showing that right now over the North American continent, that geomagnetic field is particularly weak. And so there's a lot of chaos and a lot of, because people feel unsettled when the geomagnetic field is down. Birds have trouble flying. There's a lot of field effects that happen. We also see beautiful northern lights, aurora borealis, all the way down to Florida, all the way down to Mexico, into Venezuela. Like, what the heck? It's like almost at the equator at that point. Like, wow, these so-called northern lights are like they're all over the place. But when I'm looking at a map of the reduction, the massive reduction in the geomagnetic field right over the North American continent, to me that's indicative that there's on some higher level, higher order of consciousness, there's a wish that that this information can reach us without any kind of interference, and we can be upgraded, evolved. And I'm noticing things like not getting sunburned. I splashed boiling water on myself like the other month, and I did not burn. So strange things are happening. I'm seeing sparkles when I go on walks. Like my vision seems to be changing. It seems like, and my appetite is greatly reduced. So if you're wondering how would we know if we're evolving, look for these kind of indicators. And so all of this can indicate we're getting more information through the sun, and our solar system. What I've heard is that it's raising up. So it used to be kind of in the flat, safe zone, hiding behind other galaxies and other solar systems, but now it's poking its little head up. We're up. The Earth is up. We're exposed to the center of the cosmos itself. Definitely receiving information that we have not received, except it's cyclical. It happens in tens of thousands of years. So we're getting the benefit of that information as well. So yeah, I think it's connected.
Some of those things that you're saying are parallel. My experience, I accidentally grabbed the shaft end of my hot curling iron, and it's a 450-degree curling iron.
Ooh.
With my whole hand, and didn't let it. I mean, it took, it takes a second, like to release, I'm like, oh my, that is going to be. And then I thought, nope, nothing happened. Nothing happened. This is something Bill McKenna does. He waves his hand. Nothing happened. Nothing. And I really said, oh, nah, didn't happen. And nothing happened. I did not have burns, but I'll tell you something, a little tiny bit I noticed maybe a few weeks later, it reminded me of it. There was a little, maybe it almost felt like a callus on my hand, but there was no, it should have been third-degree burns on that part of my hand easily. Another thing that happened 2 years ago, before we went to the Blind Frog Ranch, and our audience has heard us talk about that, all of a sudden I stopped being able to eat meat at all. Now, I never was a big meat eater. You know, red meat I couldn't digest, but I would eat chicken and or pork sometimes, you know. I don't really like fish, but I could eat that too. All of a sudden, literally, it tasted rotten to me, and I thought, okay, well, I'm used to that. My taste buds will change. You know, that's another thing that really happens. You know, this doesn't taste like it did anymore, and then it'll come back again. Very big changes. This was not, I had not had COVID, so it had nothing to do with that. But all of a sudden I couldn't eat it. And I thought, okay, this will shift back soon. And it never did. And also our whole family has naturally moved into this sort of fasting cycles.
Yeah.
Just very strange. Like as a collective, our eating habits have changed. And my husband, I would have never dreamed that would happen. So it's so interesting that all of that is occurring.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And I think it looks like we're moving into our light body selves. So it's extraordinary. But we are Homo sapiens. We are the wise humans. And so this is our opportunity to step fully into that as well and to pay attention to the individual, you know, what we need individually. So it might be some of what we're talking about might resonate for some people, and other people might feel like I'm still donating blood every 2 months because I'm O negative. So I like to, that's the universal donor. Plus, the only blood O negatives can receive is from other O negatives. And so I haven't yet given up meat because it seems important to, you know, to what all of that. But I think individually, it's definitely important to be connected to our environment, to know that these are sentient beings, are plants and animals that are food sources, and we can be in relationship and feel how much we love and respect all of that,
For
and be
me,
much more conscious. Yeah.
yeah, I had no value one way or the other. It wasn't a conscious choice, or I should be vegetarian or I shouldn't, or, you know, I feel like I'll have better consciousness if I'm a vet. None of that. One day it just occurred. And I kind of thought maybe it had to do with being prepared to go to the Blind Frog Ranch and the experience that we were going to have there. My body tends to do that, tends to know what's coming next and like make the change. Like in
Right.
the past, if I'd make an appointment with a practitioner for some health issue,
Right.
before we ever got there, that thing would have cleared.
Yeah.
You know, like my body
Oh
knew.
yeah, I do that too. Yeah.
Yeah, so I had no judgment on it one way or the other. It just happened. And I
Yeah.
expected it to kind of shift back, which it never did. It's just like a part of this um, ever evolving, ever changing, and it feels like it is structural
Yes.
and physical as well.
Yes.
So, you guys, we have gone so far over. It's so much fun. We could talk to Cynthia for days. And at the IMEC convention, imec.world, we're all going to be there. And I know it's going to be so much fun. The conversations are going to be amazing.
Mhm.
But before we go, I want to give Bill McKenna one last opportunity to say what he's got to say before we head out.
Oh gosh, I was like, Liz, I'm not done. I'm not done. You know, I think a closer for this is the ancients, Cynthia. Before we get to see you in just a few weeks here at IMEC in Nashville, November 7th, I think, through the 10th. So we'll continue this conversation on, but the Hopi, obviously, they predicted this time that there'll be this great upheaval and I think evolution of consciousness. But what else did they say? What then? What then?
We are moving from one world to the next. So we're currently in the fourth world. There have been the ending of the world 3 times previously. There has been a great flood, if people remember that. Like, yeah, that's part of their recollection too. So we'll be moving from the fourth to the fifth world, and that's a huge transition. So it's a time for us to be connected, to keep the Kopavi, the crown chakra, open to inspiration. So don't close that off, and keep your heart open. This is their greatest advice, to stay in relationship with others that's heartfelt. So it's not artificial. If you look at the Hopi prophecy rock, you can see this drawn right on the stone. You'll see 2 worlds separating, which is happening right now according to their prophecy. So the line that goes up into oblivion has little humans that look a little like robots to me, and their heads are coming off of their bodies if you look closely at it. And then you'll think, oh, that doesn't seem right. They're losing their heads. And so, but the people that stay on the bottom line that are close to the earth, including old people carrying walking sticks. So that line continues on and around the corner of the Hopi prophecy rock. It goes on. The fifth world continues on. The Hopi prophesies that there will be 7 worlds. And then this cycle of the ending of the worlds will finally stop. Because for those of us who are like, do we have to do this? Yeah, we've done it before. So yes, I like to say, how good can it get? So if we're going from the fourth world to the fifth, how good can this get? And to me, and when I'm in an airplane and I'm assisting with energy for the pilot, so we have a smooth landing, to me, it's the same thing. We're just moving from the fourth world to the fifth. It's going to be a smooth landing. Does it need to be crisis and all the things people you might hear about? The elites are building bunkers and this and that. Do we need that? I'd say, is that really how good can it get? So I'm challenging it, man. I'm just raising it, lifting it, calling like, that angelic feeling, grounding the energy and feeling like, oh, we can do this. This is going to be the best landing ever. I know that's why I'm here. I'm here to be part of this with all of you and all of those of us who feel like, oh, we get it. This is going to be awesome. It doesn't need to be a disaster. I know. I've heard, if you think like, oh, you haven't heard what's happening. Yeah, I've heard a lot of it. Does it need to be as bad as that? I'm just going to keep putting it out there. How good can it get? Yes, I know what I'm saying. For the planet, yes. Even with all this, yes, yes, yes.
Beautiful.
Yeah, Bill and I, we know we're saying this all the time to the people that we interact with. We know that the energy is available now for the people who came to this planet intentionally to rise into their true nature, for one, and into the powerful healer or helper or human of service that they know they came to be. It's happening. So we're constantly putting that call out to anybody who has that inclination. They know they came to be here for a very specific purpose. And exactly what you're talking about, this is it. And sometimes they just need a little context, a way to put it together and move forward. And we just invite anyone who's ready to come forward, reach out to us, reach out to Cynthia, come to the IMET convention and find your tribe so that you can actually live out that purpose that is available now. All right, everybody. We do have to end this conversation. We'll be continuing it in a few weeks at the IMET convention. So thanks, Cynthia, for being here with us.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
As always, thanks, Bill McKenna.
Thank you. Thank you, Liz and Cynthia. Thank you.
All right. Until next time, everybody, be safe and be well.